A beautiful, sunny, crisp but cold morning at the Nurburgring for qualifying ahead of the final round of the Sprint Cup element of the 2017 Blancpain GT Series. I am Bruce Jones. I'm joined by John Watson in the commentary booth. It is a beautiful morning, but it's going to take a while to get the heat into those tyres.
Well, it is truly glorious here this morning, but it is nippy. It's actually warmed up in the last half an hour.
It's risen
11 Celsius, track temperature 14, almost subtropical by normal standards. In fact, we were due to have torrential rain Friday, Saturday today, and in fact, just to ginger things up a little bit on Sunday, some lightning. But at the minute, the weather forecast has turned on its head, and we've got a glorious, albeit nippy morning as we look at, I always call it the Eiffel Tower, and people say, no, the Eiffel Tower's in Paris. It is the tower, that is the castle and the tower of the castle known as the Eiffel.
In the
Castle.
Eiffel Forest, the Nurburgring Forest. You're mixing it up, but we like that. But what a beautiful day. But it's so super tight when we come here for this final round. We've got 7 crews in with a shot of the title race. 5 of them very close indeed. You can see Maxi Buch and Franck Pereira leading the way for Mercedes. 60 points, that's a good tally. But Bortolotti and Engelhardt chasing them up for Lamborghini, just 3 points behind. And then 2 Audi crews, Dries van Tor and Marcel Fassler, the predominant crew last time out in Hungary with those 2 wins. And then Stuart Leonard and Robin Frientz getting closer and closer. And then Marcus Finkelhock and Will Stevens, they had their glory at Zolder. Best of the Bentleys is down in effectively 6th place in the championship, and 7th place, the last crew that can take it, are Jake Dennis and Peter Schotthorst. But both Schotthorst and Dennis, Abrill and Kane need a miracle. They need to win the qualifying race and then win the feature race with no one else coming to it. So effectively we've got 5 crews. What a fantastic championship. This is the overall standings, which is different. This is the sprint and endurance combined. So it's Lambo stars, Bortolotti and Engelhardt leading the way. They were very strong here last year. But Vincent Abrill, he's really gunning for that. He's 6th overall in the Sprint Cup. But for Bentley, he's looking for the glory, see if he can go up there. But what we've seen from practice so far is Audi looking incredibly strong at the Nürburgring.
Yes, and really what we have seen in the 2 FP1, FP2 sessions on Friday is that the form car, the form driver is, I keep saying young Dries van Tor. Let's call him just Dries van Tor and Marcel Fassler, fastest in FP1, then fastest in FP2, lap time of 154.7. What is interesting also is that one of the Audis, as we have a look at this 5.137 kilometer, 16 corners. Some people would say there's more than that. Well, we're going to call it 16 because they've got 17 on the screen, and we were advised by everybody in the organisation, it was only going to be 16 corners, and now they've thrown in 17. Well, where is corner 17?
Well, it's the kink on the way down to the hairpin at the bottom of your screen there, just before it goes to pale blue. But we've got gradient here at the Nürburgring, and I always find that so enticing. It really makes a circuit, John.
Yes, and I like it with my roast beef as well. But it is one of these circuits that, where we are at the start-finish line, it's the highest part of the circuit. And of course, if you go back to the days of the Nordschleife, which is the old 14-mile circuit, this was pretty much one of the highest parts of the circuit. But it all drops downhill down to the bottom of the circuit at turn 8. That is the hairpin bend, and thereafter they climb all the way up through a sequence of lefts and rights till they get to turn 12, and then they drop down, coming down through turn 13 really, which is just a curve. It doesn't really count for a great deal, and then they climb back up to the final turns onto pit straight. Disappointing that we were told that there are 16 corners, but the graphic shows 17.
Let it go, John. We'll go with 17. So you see Franck Pereira starting to get his act together down the HTP Motorsport crew, sharing the championship leading car with Maxi Buch. Maxi's been there, done it, won it, and for Franck, this will be his first big title if he can nail it. He will be the first driver out. We have Driver 1 going in this first 15-minute segment of qualifying. Driver 2 will take over, and then we'll have the shootout for the top 17 runners in Q3.
Just another little story that could have been a problem for the number 2 WRT Audi team, Will Stevens and Marcus Winkelhock. They found after the round in Budapest that there was a issue with the chassis, which meant the car had to be stripped down, sent back to Audi at Ingolstadt to have the damage or whatever it was repaired. It was on the limit as to whether that car would be back in time, but it was. It was here in the paddock, presented for scrutineering, and of course it ran Friday as well. So that car was actually, I think, the Audi chassis that suffered a rear impact during the morning warm-up in Monza way back in April, I think it was. So that car has maybe been carrying an injury for quite a long time, but certainly following the round in Budapest, the last sprint round in this 5-round calendar, they found that there was an issue, but it's been attended to, and that car should be absolutely au point.
Well, that's incredibly impressive, because obviously in the run since Monza, they won one of the races at Zolder. They finished 5th last time out. They've had a couple of thirds. But is it going to be a Lamborghini day? 12 months ago, in the mist, the fog that hung over the circuit here, delaying the action, it was a Lamborghini Huracan that was right at the front end of the grid. Brilliant, brilliant job done by Mirko Bortolotti to put it there. But it is in the mix. It is the fly in the ointment, if you will, of the runaway Audi success. But don't forget, we have still got a Mercedes at the top of the charts.
Very much, and Marco Bortolotti, as we look at the Lamborghini, the 63 Lamborghini, but it's the 84 Mercedes of Maximilian Buch and Frank Pereira that, I suppose one would say in Budapest, didn't quite find the natural form or pace that we expect from it, and they had, by their standards, probably a slightly disappointing outcome. They've got to come here and be absolutely at the top of their game, because right now, and looking at what Dries van Thor did just 3 weeks ago back in the Hungaroring, and what he's done here over the previous 2 free practice sessions, most impressive indeed.
Well, Christian Engelhardt, maybe it'll come good for him on home ground here in Germany. Certainly been very impressive through the course of this year in that number 19 Lamborghini. So let's see how that fares today. But we've got quite a lot of new cars this weekend. We've got Lexus joining the championship for the first time, entered by Emil Frey. Brilliant to have it on board. Hopefully we'll show you that very soon indeed. But another manufacturer, it's got to be good news.
Well, the Lexus Racing, the car is the Lexus RCF GT3, and this is a car that we've been trailing for quite some time, because Emil Frey have been running their Jaguars all through the season, so this is the first time we've seen a Lexus turn up at a round of the Blancpain GT Sprint Championship, and driven by Stefano Telli, understandably, alongside Albert Costa, so that's a strong lineup. I don't know yet what to make of the 54, as to whether it's going to be a short-term threat or whether it's going to be a long-term threat, or but it's still, I would say, very much going to be a work in progress.
It's a toe in the water at this. It's raced at a lower level. It's stepping up the mark coming here to the Nurburgring, and obviously for them, the fact it's clear blue skies and they're going to get decent track time at least today or even this morning is really, really vital as they really ramp up what they're doing. But for the crews at the front end, including Marcel Fessler and Dries van Thor, as you said, John, they were the car that really, really set the pace with those 2 wins in Hungary, and that number 5 Audi will be started by Marcel Fessler. You just see him climbing on board, but they've got the momentum with them, and in terms of the championship, they're just 4 points away from the championship lead. There is the Lexus, looking beautiful in the morning sunshine. In fact, it's just down across from our commentary position, up near pit entry end of the pit lane. There it is, 54, very different shape to everything else racing here, which in its own right, in its own way, is a great thing. Yes,
I mean, it is a very individual shape, and great to see Lexus joining into the Blancpain GT Sprint, and hopefully it will be also the Endurance Championships in 2018, and a car that everybody in the pit lane will be studying very closely indeed, just to see where the Japanese manufacturer, which is of course the luxury arm of the giant motor industry manufacturer Toyota, and car principally developed by Emil Frey Racing, but with a big amount of input from the Lexus or Toyota factory. In a sense, not dissimilar to the way that the Nissan GTR runs under the Bob Neville banner. It is a private entry, but with a lot of works blessing.
Just taking a look there, John, Robin Freitz smiling away. He hasn't to go out in the first session. It's his teammate Stuart Leonard. They're ranked equal third in the championship. On countback, they might lose out to Fessler and Van Tor on, if it comes to equal points. But they're on 56 points. Fessler, Van Dries on 56. Bortolotti and Engelhardt 57. Just to reiterate, Buch and Pereira, the Mercedes racers in the 84, top of the charts. But looking at the form through practice, the Audi R8 LMS has very much been the tool to have. It certainly seems to suit the Nurburgring, but don't forget the temperature is rising relatively rapidly here, but each day brings something very different in the Eiffel Forest in terms of track conditions.
Well, if you go, maybe 100 kilometres up northwest-ish, you come to that other circuit that is sort of in the middle of a forest, that's Spa, and they're having a 6-hour historic event there, and it is absolutely heaving it down.
Yes, it's been a mixed few days, but right now we'll take the sunshine here at the Nurburgring. Don't the cars look amazing, and it really is a packed field of cars. And it is very much the sharp end of the championship. Now it's starting to get serious, of course. There's the time. It's going to start 9:44. That's 4 minutes behind schedule, but we've had on-track action this morning. I think it was slightly delayed. Never mind. It gives the teams a little more chance to, well, the temperature a chance to go up maybe another ½ degree. And as you can see, they're waiting as long as they can before they stick the Pirelli slicks onto all these beautiful cars down the pit lane. 84 will be started in qualifying. By Franck Pereira. No, sorry, by Max. Yeah, by Franck Pereira. He goes out driver number 1. Then he'll hand over to Maxi Buch. But really, they are alone among the Mercedes challengers. We've seen great speed from fellow Mercedes drivers, but for sheer consistency, Buch and Pereira are just a brilliant combo.
I mean, if you want to sort of put them in order of not preference but seniority, it's the 84 Mercedes is the car that generally is the one kind of designated as being the #1 car. As we look at an image of Maxime Soulet, a bit like the deer in the headlights, that photograph, but we're seeing the Bentley. We noticed in Hungary, they were saying that when they run behind, and this was in much, much hotter conditions, the exhaust gases from an Audi, when they're running close to them, have a bearing on the radiator, water temperatures, intercooler temperatures. Here, that will not be a problem because the ambient is what, the best part of 30 Celsius lower, or certainly 20 Celsius lower than it was in Hungary. We got up to 35 ambient, track temperature up to 55, I think, at one stage. You know, really, really unbelievably warm conditions in Hungary.
But the Bentley, it's been a great tool in the Endurance Series, great consistent form from Vincent Abriel and Stephen Kane, but in the Sprint Cup with seconds and thirds, but no wins. And Soulet and Soucek, who are so strong in endurance, just haven't been at the races in the Sprint Cup. I know sometimes that's how the dice rolls, but it's a peculiarity. But Abriel really seems a star in the Sprint Series.
I mean, to me, the grid position in sprint events in particular is everything. It's still even everything in the endurance events, but because these are 1-hour events, you've got a pit stop, mandatory pit stop, driver and tyre change at roughly 30 minutes. If you haven't got grid position and therefore get track position very early, it is hard to make progress. Such is the closeness of the competition amongst the 30. There'll be 33 cars taking to the track now, and out of those 33, 17 will move forward into Q3 when we will then determine the top 17 grid positions.
Yep, so in the last moment we've just gained another degree of track and air temperature, up to 15 degrees track temperature, 12 degrees air temperature. Quite a few new faces. Jens Klingman on board this weekend. He's joining Antonio Felix da Costa in the 99 BMW because Philippe Eng is away on duty. Jules Gounon is on duty elsewhere, so Tristan Vautier, that's a really, really good replacement, is joining the ASP Mercedes crew. We've got a third Grasser Racing entry, Rolfin Eichmann and Tom Dillman, a very talented driver who I think would go very well in this series. So he's joined that crew. Santaloc have changed their crew. We've got Simon Gachet and Peter Turting. Turting is a great example. He's stepping up. He was last year's GT4 European Series champion. A sort of junior class to this, if you will, and it's great to see him come on board this weekend. Also, the #1 Audi is Enzo Ida, as always. He's just going out in this session, but Frederic Verviche has crossed him over there. And I just also, another shot horse. We've got a second shot horse. We've had Peter all season, and in the McLaren crew, good thing we look at McLaren, that's the 59, but the 43 McLaren is staying shot horse, joining Johnny Kane this weekend. But right now, let's look at everything out on the track. Oh, just before we get going, John, just want to congratulate Frank Stippler, one of our regular Audi racers, on some fantastic driving at the Goodwood Revival last weekend in very mixed conditions, and his Mark I Jaguar really, really showed everyone how to do it.
I mean, class act amongst a field of, let's say, quality hooligans.
Yes, they're told not to be, but somehow it's just beneath the surface. Right, let's take a little look. Riding around the lap with Franck Pereira, you can see patches of damp around the circuit. John, what are you seeing as they go around? This is the fictitious turn 7.
Yes.
It's now back in. That's turn 7. Yeah. Turn 8 is the hairpin at the bottom.
Turn 8 is the hairpin, one of the areas in the racetrack where it is possible to overtake, but it's really all about getting out of turn 6 and getting a good run down. Then you begin the climb. That was the lowest part of the circuit. Then up the hill through turns 9, which in qualifying trim with good tire temperature and track temperature, you can just about squeeze through flat out. Then the flick back through turn 10. But obviously everybody on their outlap just trying to get as much temperature into the tire as possible, bearing in mind that depending how fresh the set of tires you have on your car, I would imagine that probably most people have gone out with the best set they would have had from Friday, rather than just putting on a brand new set when track conditions are not at the level that they would have been when they were previously on track. And you can see a few little damp patches as they come up through the flick, which is called turn 13. Then into the quicker of the two, no, it's not, in fact, that's the slower of the two chicanes. The chicane up turns 14 and 15, or 15 and 16 if you're going to go with 17 corners. And we have to get that sorted out. Again, coming now down pit straight, nobody going at racing speed. They're still trying just to build that temperature, but they need to start thinking about building a lap, because they will need 2 or 3 laps to get tire temperature. As we look at, I thought that was going to be the, oops, a bit windy out there this morning. As we see the 84 Mercedes coming through the long, never-ending turn 2 into turn 3, and then the cup, that's turn 3 there.
It's very, very damp just there.
It is. It's just, it's quite, you can, if you haven't got tire temperature and you've got damp patches, remember these cars are not lightweight, nimble single-seaters. They're 1,000+ kilograms, and they take a little bit more time.
Well, quite a few of the cars still sitting in the pits. Some have come out and gone back in again. I think, again, we will just see that the fastest time come towards the very end of this session. It is bright and sunny here this morning. Still really quite damp. So looking down, this is the Jake Dennis number 3 Audi, shared with Peter Schotthorst. And Jake, one of the stars at the Hungaroring last time out, really stepping up to the mark. Great conversion from single-seaters.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I said to Jake during the podium pre-ceremonies in the Parc Fermé that I thought, was that one of the races where you feel that you've really now consolidated your position within the WRT team as a bona fide GT3 driver? He was delighted.
Yeah, no, so he should have been. It was really mature, kicking off with a 3rd, shared with Peter Schotthorst, and then a 2nd. And I think Schotthorst needs a lot of credit as well. He's really starting to find his form. So Audi have an embarrassment of riches in that championship challenging battle. And they are very much, they're at the tail end of that. They're down on the 7th position overall. They have to have everything come their way, but the fact they've come good at the end of the season, that's the time to really hit your form. Will Stevens also right in the mix. Now, we've been talking about the problems this chassis has had, but the fact they've still finished 5th last time out, took a win at Zolder, means not too much is wrong, but hopefully for Will and his teammate Marcus Winkelhock, they will find an improvement with this new car, but they don't always come quick immediately, do they? They're just settling in.
Yeah, I mean, what the precise issue was may or may not have been something that had a major bearing in the car's track performance, but clearly WRT felt that it was sufficiently severe that the car had to be stripped out, returned to Ingolstadt or wherever Audi build, because these cars are in-house built by Audi, had to be returned to the jig, and then whatever the repair that was required would be executed, and the car returned back to the factory, back to the WRT team to be built back up into a race car. And I mean, an enormous amount of work in a relatively short space of time. Remember, also in August, everybody goes on holiday in Central Europe or middle of Europe.
What do you mean the cars come back? Stop calling me on the beach. Right, we did see a 0-1 flashing on the windscreen of the number 8 Bentley, so that's Maxime Soulet. Only just over 2 minutes though. A quick time yesterday got down to 1 minute 54.7.
Yeah.
But as you can see, every time we get a far out shot of the track, dry there at the bottom of the hill, but some of the patches in between, there we are, back onto a damp patch, you can see almost immediately. And when we had that low shot, the dip before you rise up to the chicane, you could really see where the damp was sitting.
Yes.
Well, probably the last bit to have the sun hit it. Most of the circuit gets sun fairly early on because all the grandstands are some way back, and it allows a good reach. So looking at Franck Pereira, French racer, pressing on their car at the moment. It doesn't really matter their position, they're 11th. But it's about whether they're going to start building for a quick lap. They've still got, well, it's below 10 minutes, below 9 minutes now of this qualifying session.
Only 13 cars have actually established a time. 14 now, but that's Steve O. in the 888 Ferrari with a 2 minute 17.3. Obviously, that's his first flying lap. What's going to be key is 84 Mercedes coming across start-finish line now on the end of its second flying lap, and see whether from 12th place it can improve. Well, it does, but it's only up to 5th place. I mean, I say only up to 5th place. It's now 6th place because 54, that's the new Lexus Racing, has Stefano Telli behind the wheel, and it's gone 5th because it's a promising start. I'm pleased that Lexus is already showing it's in the mix of cars. When it comes to the ultimate dry, hot race conditions, whether it'll be able to maintain that level of performance so early in its racing career, another matter, but nonetheless a good start for Emil Frey Racing.
So top of the time charts at the moment is that 63 Lamborghini. Don't forget it's second on the overall points chart. Christian Engelhardt at the wheel, and of course we combine the fastest time in Q1. When the second group of drivers get in, we combine it with their best time to find the 17 cars that go through to shoot out, and suddenly up into, we've got Phil Quaife up in a Pro-Am entry, the 55 Ferrari, shared Spirit of Race Ferrari, shared with Lorenzo Cazé. Phil is one of the few drivers from the first session who'll go out in Q3. In fact, only he and Will Stevens will be doing that. Otherwise, all the Q2 drivers stay on board if their car is quick enough to be in those top 17. But Engelhardt really flying. 1 minute 58.3. Fabian Schiller now goes, oh, Simon Gachet, welcome to the championship, briefly went top. Now we're into the 1 minute 57s because Christian Engelhardt 0-1 flashing on his windscreen of that 63 Lamborghini, really trying to make it count. Bit of a twitch there under braking.
Yes, and the reason for that is track conditions. Track temperature is cool. Tyre temperatures are not up to the optimum racing, and you can see just how difficult it is for Engelhardt to keep control. Slipping past, I think that might have been the BMW. The Lexus, or it would have been a BMW indeed. Damp in parts through turn 3 and difficulty getting the power on. You can see again just that little snap oversteer from the Lamborghini, and now Engelhardt can get the throttle open, charging up behind Gachet. So into turn 4, 5, then through turn 6. There is a limited amount of grip, and if you try to push too quickly with tyres that are not up to actual optimum temperature, that's when you're going to see this little snatch, quick snatch, steering wheel adjustments, just trying to keep the car always pointing forward. So out of the bottom of the corner, turn 8, up the hill, flat out, let's have a look, listen, flat out. No, it has to breathe it all the way up through turns 11 and so turn 9 and 10. So now up to turn 11 on the brakes. In the dry and normal track conditions, quite a lot of speed you can carry through this, then getting track position for turn 12, because this leads on to effectively the quickest part of the track, and it does, as you put out, Bruce, dips down, then the flick flat out, well, all three flat out through 13, and then key up the hill is to spot your braking points, to be careful not to outbrake yourself, get it all wrong, and then into the pit lane. Christian Engelhardt decides that's done up, but Phil Quaife
just about to cut across, and having been second, Phil Quaife just moved it all around. Simon Gachet, welcome to the championship, but Ortelli's really been flying. He was second a blink of an eye ago in this brand new Lexus. Let's take a look at it. Seems a bit more sit up and beg than some of the lower models, but we know how quick that Lexus is as a road car. Also hearing the ambient sound,
V8.
Oh, bring that into the championship. We very much like that. But sitting down in 5th place, 1 minute 58.1, fastest lap Phil Quaife in the Pro-Am Spirit of Race Ferrari, 1 minute 57.0. And again, the early part of the lap is where it's really slippery, and then at this low point it starts to get a little bit dry, has a bit more sun.
But the Lexus, I must say, looking very composed so far from what we've seen on this lap. It doesn't appear to have any kind of sort of snatchy or snappy handling characteristics. So let's watch and see what 54 can do.
I think he's on course for an improvement. He's fallen down to 7th place, but Phil Quaife is going faster and faster in that lead Ferrari.
Stays in 7th place.
Okay, very close to his best time, but that's a good consistent run, just 3 tenths down on his best, but great to have that on board. So at the moment it's Phil Quaife for the 55 Ferrari, Simon Gachet, who's joined the Santalot Junior team this weekend, Christopher Haas and Romain Monti normally drive that, but the order has changed. 0-1, and let's enjoy it. Spirit of Race, young British racer, well, not so young anymore, Phil Quaife, but really, really going so well in that. He'll hand over to Lorenzo Cazé for the second session, but look how well he's going, and seeing if he's Well, he's improved in his first sector, he's improved in his second. Will he go into the 1 minute 56s? I think he will. But we've got more pink on the 1 minute 56.8. He's fastest by 0.4 of a second. That could all change because the number 59 McLaren is on an absolute flyer at the moment. Andrew Watson, 2 pink times on the screen, 2 best sectors of all. He goes top, 1 minute 55.9 for 1. Almost a second clear for the young Northern Irish racer. John, take it away.
What have McLaren, what have Straka Racing done to the McLaren? Because all year they've been complaining about lack of grip, not being able to make the 2017 Pirelli Tower work with the McLaren chassis. There is Andrew Watson in car 59, fastest overall by just under a second. I mean, where has this time come from? Andrew obviously doing a stunning job behind the wheel, but the car, for the first time that we've really seen early in a qualifying session, dominating at the minute by just, say, 0.918 of a second.
But it's not a flash in the pan because we have to link it to yesterday when they were third fastest.
Indeed.
So seriously, something has been found, but you've got to then deliver when it really counts. It's not practice, it's qualifying. He's fast.
The thing that's changed watching the car is that it actually looks like it's handling in a way that allows the driver to do, I keep repeating it, the 2 fundamentals of a racing car. Turn the steering wheel with confidence, open the throttle with confidence, and again, fastest overall in Sector 1. And this is his 4th flying lap as Rob Bell gets himself dressed and prepared. He'll be behind the wheel of this car very shortly. We've only just 2 minutes 20 seconds of this Q1 remaining. So Andrew Watson, again, wait to see what the second sector time should be coming up any moment now as he comes out of turn 12 and the drop down. So where is that second sector time? Well, it's a long sector. Where is the second? Anybody find?
I think he just crossed it. Okay, not as good as before, but no one else is getting close. He's fastest by 0.918 of a second. Second fastest, Phil Quaife, but no improvements from Phil this time around. But no one else further down the chart is setting really, really quick times. Just had an improvement from Jens Klingmann up to 4th place in that 99 BMW. How good is that lap? 1 minute.
But Bruce...
Oh, it's improved again.
But Bruce, what's impressive is that in 3rd place is the sister Straka McLaren of Johnny Kane. McLaren's 1st and 3rd. Unheard of this season.
So it has, of course, was in great form from them before, but it just shows how the championship keeps on moving. New batch of Pirelli tyres for 2017. Not everyone has managed to get their cars to adapt to them as well. But now back into 2nd place, Simon Gachet. Hello, he's making this look rather easy in the 26 Sandslock Audi. He is 3/4 of a second down. There is the 54 Lexus down. Yeah, just checking the timesheets. Down into 14th place. It didn't improve, having fleetingly been second, but they are in the mix. They've got Stefano Telli out of the car. In fact, he's done his bit. Albert Costa, the Spanish racer, will have to take it over. Will that get in the top 17? Well, time will tell. But certainly encouraging.
It would be certainly a great start for Emil Frey Lexus Racing to get their 54 Lexus up into Q3, and certainly a very exciting entry and indicative of just the importance of the Blancpain Sprint and Endurance Championships, that we're getting even more manufacturers through Emil Frey Racing entering the brand new Lexus.
Right into the dying moments of this, and where's the championship leading 84 Mercedes? It's not in the mix. Where are the challengers? Where are the Audis? They are not in the mix. The best place of the WRT cars, Jake Dennis, is down in 9th. The best place Audi overall is 3rd, but that's from the Santalot Racing team.
And the 333, the Pro-Am Ferrari, in 11th place, driven by Alexander Matschul at the minute, and of course Daniel Kolovitz is considered to be the hot shoe in that car. As we look at the Royal Racing BMW number 99.
Well, the checkered flag is out, but 99 is still going around its lap, 2nd fastest. So welcome to Jens Klingmann. He's really got in and got stuck in with great aplomb. Don't forget, this is Q1. Q2 is coming up, the second 15-minute sector. Then we'll combine those times to see which the fastest 17 cars are. Andrew Watson's taken the checkered flag as well. He will not improve any further, but his last lap was still quicker than anyone else has managed. He's done 3 very, very good laps in that 59 McLaren. Will he be toppled at the end of the session? He's sitting on an advantage of 0.565 of a second. Yeah, Klingsman can still finish this lap. He's early in the lap. I don't know if it's going to be good enough. We will see. No, it isn't. That first sector didn't look quite as nailed down as the previous one. But a real shake-up at the top of the championship. Car 43 spun and rejoined at T3. We know that's Johnny Kane.
So that was down at the part of the circuit, which is just shortly after the start-finish line. sequence of a very long turn 2 running into turn 3, and we know that the inside of the track has been and still is damp. So that's one of the bits of the racetrack where drivers are maybe taking slightly wider a line than they would normally do, as we watch the BMW 99. Again, a strong run at this point from Jens Klinsmann, and in theory he should go quickest on this lap. He hasn't got a personal best or a purple overall best in the first 2 sectors. So is he coming in? And he is coming in. So he doesn't even take the checkered flag. He decides time enough to come in, and he's back into the pit lane.
Okay, there's the 58 McLaren sister car to the one that is at the top of the charts, 58 with Komi Ledegar. He'll hand over to Ben Barnicoat. Will we see an improvement? Very few improvements.
Second.
Right at the flag. There I was, just looking at his sector times. Would they be good enough? So McLaren's 1 and 2, and Johnny Kane's car in 7th. But that won't improve on its lap, because there it is coming back in. Sorry, that's Andrew Watson coming back
Andrew
in.
Watson. So we've got the situation where Straka Racing were almost in tears in Budapest, because they just simply could not get the balance and the grip from the car. Come here, and where temperatures are way, way below those that we saw in Budapest, and all of a sudden they're dominating. Effectively, the first 2 cars are the 2 Straka cars, 59 for Andrew Watson and 58 for Komi Ledegar.
Be good to see Andrew climb out of the car, because he may not know he's number 1. He should have received a signal, but he's going to be pumped up, because that was not just a flash in the pan. That was a really, really strong performance. So Rob Bell waiting to take it over. I don't know how much communication he'll have. He'll want to know where exactly the track is at its very most slippery in the damp patches. But certainly the stadium section, if you will, turns 1, 2 and 3 seemed some of the worst. But it's advantage McLaren at the end of that first session. Straka Racing 1, 2 and 7. So McLaren coming good. An advantage of 0.367 of a second at the end, and a great performance from BMW. Jens Klingmann joining the 99 crew and getting right in the mix. But hats off to Phil Quaife, a Pro-Am entry in 4th place overall. And Simon Gachet making a real splash as he joined up with Peter Turting to enter the championship. But of the works cars, the top cars, look at 84, 24th position overall. That is the championship leader.
But look at the number 5, Dries van Voor and Marcel Fassler, car that absolutely dominated in Budapest, all the way down to 19th.
Yeah, and I think we'll look to the 3rd page of the timing screen and find some of the other championship challengers. Let's just have a look down there. Belgian Audi Club, number 1, we saw that in trouble, but well, that is really quite a mix. And the number 7 Bentley, don't forget that's Vincent Abril handing over to Stephen Kane. Well, that puts a real pressure on Stephen Kane to start to deliver. Well, I mean, 20 seconds off the pace, they didn't set a proper time.
They didn't set a time effectively, so that whatever their issues are, they didn't get to complete a proper flying lap on a circuit that was bit by bit drying out. As we look at the BMW and McLaren crews.
That's a difference in height. Jens Klingmann, rather taller figure, talking to Antonio Felix da Costa, the much smaller Portuguese racer. And again, those time-honoured hand signals, John, of just how much grip you don't have.
And a fist pump, you know.
Whatever that means.
Whatever that is, you know, you have to have a fist pump.
So BMW also, really, it's been a while since they've had a great result in the Sprint Cup. They tend to go far better in the endurance rounds, but let's see if they can put it up the order, because this season it's really been a case of endurance way ahead of them for Sprint Cup.
What has occurred in this qualifying session is that with low ambient and low track temperatures, we're seeing a real mix-up of the grid compared to what would assume would be the norm. And certainly what we saw from the 2 sessions yesterday, they were dominated by the number 5 Audi. Frank Stipper in the ISR car, the 75 car, second quickest in 1. Stuart Leonard and Robin Freehan's second quickest in Q2. So it was Audi in the 2 sessions.
Let's do a bit of maths here, John. Looking at the top 6 runners, only 6 cars covered by the top second. That normally will cover the top 18 or 20.
Absolutely.
So it just goes to show some managed to get to grips on a circuit that was certainly very damp in parts this morning. The sky, as we look out, not a cloud to be seen. I'm almost looking towards Belgium as I crane my head out of the commentary box. It is a beautiful, beautiful morning. Track temperature is dry, but you can see even in the pit lane, I know there's black marks from tyre scuff, but it's still a little bit damp. Just behind the pit wall it will be damp, but it is drying, it is clearing. It may look beautiful, but it's still not very warm. Maybe 12, 13 degrees air temperature.
It is on the very low side, and it's not just the ambient, it is more the track temperature, because last night, I mean, you probably got down to about a couple of degrees Celsius. No, 2 Celsius. It's not correct to say degrees Celsius, it's 2 Celsius. So as cold as you can get without being frozen. So we're looking into the 63 Lamborghini and Mirko Bortolotti. And this will be the session, really, where we will see what the top teams have actually been holding back, because maybe because of the conditions, some of the top teams decided that we'll go out, we'll get the information, we're not going to commit ourselves. So in the case of the 84 Mercedes, they're very confident that they've got the pace. So what we have seen with the two McLarens leading the field in Q1 may not necessarily be what we will see at the end of Q2, but with ambient temperatures low, track temperatures low, who knows? Lots of no's in there, Bruce.
No, entirely, but I think that's probably very sensible. Have a look and see, and then you will combine those sessions, and the fastest 17 runners overall will go through. So if you do your quick time in Q2, that is absolutely fine. So a lot of exploration, but let's take nothing away from Andrew Watson. That was a fantastic performance in the 59 McLaren. But the 39 Carlo Van Dam driven, Singer-sponsored TP12 Ferrari goes out. That is in the championship mix. It's second placed in the Pro-Am class, and certainly the tie racer Piti Bhirombhakdi, who's bankrolling this whole enterprise, is living the dream. He didn't expect to be right at the sharp end of the championship, but what we saw already was Phil Quaife is determined the 55 Ferrari crew will have something to say in that battle. But now the ante has been up, so the car's going out. 33 runners will take the track as soon as they possibly can. 15 minutes of qualifying, and then we'll find out, John, who goes ahead to Q3. And let's face it, pole position, as ever, is going to be vital.
Well, as pretty much in every racetrack around the world, we know that overtaking, and especially in a championship like the Blancpain Sprint and Endurance, they have got such a competitive field that it is really, really vital that you get your qualifying absolutely spot on, because to pass around the Nurburgring is not a lot easier than it was to pass around the Hungaroring. I mean, even Spa-Francorchamps, we're finding that there are only a couple of places where you can make a clean, bona fide move on a competitive car without putting him or yourself into jeopardy. Now it's all about minimising the number of errors. I'm not saying it's an error, but we have a message on our timing screen. The team manager of car number 2, which is Will Stevens and Marcos Winkelhock, to the stewards after Q3. So we don't know if it's a big breach, a bad breach, a little breach, but there is something for which the stewards want to go and talk. Yeah, I mean, there's an infinite number of things it could be. There's no point in speculating, but that is the car that was I mean, I was advised certainly before the event got underway that the car would be coming to the track later maybe than the other WRT cars, but it arrived, it was scrutinized, and everything was processed correctly. So ruled that one out. Yeah, well, we'll wait to see. So Peter Schothorst, Jake Dennis and Rob Bell gone fastest overall in Sector 1 in the McLaren. That was the quickest car at the end of Q1. Okay, but let's look at number 3, and they were picking their way up the charts, but certainly they've made a big splash. Jake Dennis and now Peter Schothorst, young Dutch racer at the wheel. The smiles on their faces after the Hungaroring with their third and then the second place finishes. Would have been hard to remove, but you deliver once and you've got to do it all over again. They have taste of being close to victory, and I think they really rather fancy it. Certainly the form for Audis in the 2 practice sessions yesterday, very, very strong indeed. Again, as we start Q2, you can still see the damp parts of the circuit. I love the wide shots here at the Nurburgring, John, when you see out over the trees into the distance and see how the track flows around the hillside here in the Eiffel Forest. But right now all the drivers focused on the 17 corners of this circuit, and really they try to get as much information from their co-drivers as to where the traction was at its very least. They'll be able to see that as they go around, but of course even in the 5 minutes they were having changeover time, conditions will be changing. Or they're changing literally as the lap passes by, and of course depending once again on what teams have chosen to do on the available rubber, because using your new tyre allocation in qualifying will benefit you, but on the other hand, if you then have no new tyres for the qualifying race this afternoon or the feature race on Sunday, that then will have a bearing on the outcome of one or both of those events. So it's always a balancing act for the teams to keep back as many of their fresh or new sets of tyres as possible. Now, one thing that's absolutely noticeable between Q1 and Q2, there's a big difference. There's more traffic in Q2. Quite a lot of cars stayed in their pit lane for a lot of the first session because the track was so damp. Now they've got to get themselves track space. 59, that's Rob Bell. He will most likely go top, but getting caught in traffic is not a good thing. Lorenzo Caze keeps out of the way in the spirit of race Ferrari, but that McLaren seems absolutely on it very early in the session, waiting for a time to be delivered. The best time in Q1 by
teammate Andrew Watson, 1 minute 55.873, but diving into the pit lane. So he's learnt a bit, but he now wants to go and talk tyre pressures, whatever, with his team.
He did get compromised coming through turn 13, which may or may not have a bearing as to whether he did go into the pits. But we're saying that in 39, the Ferrari, well, it was going to be nice, the 888 Ferrari, that's the Kessel Racing Steve of David Perel, has gone quickest. That's the AM car on 157.2. Very good lap from David Perel. Now he's been superseded by the 75 Audi, and that is Kevin Cocoon. So 156.266 by Dominic Barman in the 86 Mercedes. So literally now it is almost by the car, and it's car 27. And that's the orange one, Team Lazarus Lamborghini, that's gone fastest sector 1, fastest sector 2, waiting for it to complete sector 3. That's the bright orange Lamborghini. There it is, comes out of the final turn. Now coming across start-finish line, where will it end up? It ends up
second fastest, because ahead of him, Daniel Kalvitz has just exceeded his pace in the final sector. The 333 Ferrari, top of the charts. Don't forget that is challenging in the Pro-Am class. So that's top ahead of Cristani, who's in the 27 car, Dominic Baumann being pushed down the order. But Daniel Kalvitz, he just seems, doesn't really matter what car you put him in, he is super, super quick. But the top guns, by and large, have come into the pit lane. Daniel Luncadea, definitely called him a top gun. He is up in third fastest, Dominic Baumann likewise. But the track, suddenly having been super full, has now emptied out a little bit. We've got just 9.5 minutes remaining. A lot of the cars came into the pits, have now gone back out. So is this the time to really maximise before they get in your way again?
It is, but what will always be the case, the track with 9 minutes to go will be in a certain condition. When those 9 minutes are concluding, the track, in theory, should be at its best. So those that are out at the point when the checkered flag comes out on that fresh set of tyres are the ones that are most likely to get the quickest times overall. But Daniel Kalvitz, once again, fastest overall in Sector 1. So the Ferrari, again, the Pro-Am Ferrari, proving to be such a good car for the Pro-Am ranks. Very forgiving, just an easy, nice car, good basic customer, fastest sector, overall Sector 2. So let's see whether Kalvitz can get it. 3 purples, and ultimately then will be overall quickest yet again on the last lap, 55.1. So this could be the first lap we're going to see this morning into the 154s. And remember, yesterday the fast lap was a 54.7.
Well, he's close.
54.9.
No, okay, so he did what you wanted him to achieve, got into the 1 minute 54s. Again, the deep shadow over half of the circuit as they approach the stadium section. The bit that's had the sun early on is dry. The bit on the opposite side of the track is still damp. Luckily, that's away from the racing line. Of course, the cars dry it out as they go. But it's Daniel Kalvitz leading the way. 98 BMW. Haven't seen so much of that. That is being shared this weekend by its regular crew, Marcus Paltela and Jesse Crone, who's on board at the moment. There's Jesse, waiting to slot in a good flying lap. But don't forget the sister car, 99, in the hands of Jens Klingman, was very good in Q1. So standing in some good form. I think pretty much everyone is out of the pit lane. Marcel Fessler looking on. Those 2 wins in Hungary suddenly put he and Dries Thor right into the thick of the championship battle. 4 points away from the overall lead. Now riding on board, this time it's with Mirko Bortolotti. We had Engelhardt in the first session. Is it dry? Hard to tell visibly. Where you go down into the bright sunshine, it's hard to see.
That's dry enough to, I mean, he's able to use the apex. You can see damp patches to his right, but the racing line now, with the exception of probably still in turn 3, is pretty much about as good as you're going to expect, and certainly good enough to enable you to go and push hard. But it's now car 19, that's the Grasso Racing, the sister car, it's Ezequiel Perez Compact and Andrea Calderaldi. So it's Calderaldi's done the second quickest time in the sister car. So the car we're now looking at, the 63, what would be described as the lead Grasso Racing Lamborghini.
Yeah, waiting for that to record a flying lap. So the sister car 19, Andrea Caldarelli, the the driver who's driven so many Ferraris, test driver down there from the age of 18 and really flourishing now. Second fastest, it's changed again. Number 66 has suddenly gone into the mix. That's the Attempto Racing Max van Splunteren driven Lamborghini goes second fastest. That's the blue metallic one. We saw it briefly in shot. Now the big guns starting to wind it up. We've got Bortolotti in the 63 Lamborghini. In behind, you can see the bronze Mercedes 84, the championship leader, Maxi Bouk, trying to see what he can do. He's 8th fastest. Lorenzo Carze has got it slightly wrong. Don't forget that was the car that Phil Quaife drove so well. Will that bring out a flag?
It is a yellow flag in Q2, so that's going to have a major effect on anybody here on. I mean, for example, the 58 car, as the Stracker Racing of Ben Barnacote, fastest overall in Sector 1. He can't go through Sector 2 quickly. He's got to back out of it. There's a yellow flag, so a lot of people are going to have an effect.
Red flag now, red flag.
There we are. So
because they wouldn't have got that out in 6 minutes.
No, they wouldn't, and it will enable everybody to go back into the pit lane. But there will have been teams like the 58 McLaren, which may have been on a brand new set of tyres, now have to go back into the pit lane and not get the benefit of that on their flying lap.
Can I just throw something into the mix? While that was happening, we had two Audis go to the top of the charts. The number 5 crew, Dries van Tor, when it mattered, he delivered 1 minute 54.769. And Marcus Winkelhock in the number 2 Audi slotted into second place, less than 1/10 of a second between them. So it was changing fast. They just edge ahead of Daniel Kalvitz. But having said, the Audi crews were not finding form. Suddenly they did just the right thing. Track temperatures came up. They thought about the long and hard foe. So for the Lorenzo Carze Ferrari, that will need a tow out. We saw him walking away from the car. That was down in 19th place, but it matters not. But it's an interruption in the session. All the teams have to think on their feet.
It's going to need more than a tow out because there'll be front end damage to the car. You can see the bodywork already. And I suspect that there'll be radiator damage and mountings for the radiators, whatever. You can see the bonnet itself is at a very distorted angle. So that car will not be back on track until later this afternoon for the qualifying race.
Eyes on the championship leaders. Maxi Bouk back in the 84 Mercedes. Where is he in the time charts? He's 0.7 of a second away from the ultimate pace, and he was 9th, he's 8th. Someone's just had a time taken away. The 2 and 5 Audis have had their times taken away, so Kalvitz goes back to the top. Readjustment must have hit just after the red flag. Well, we'll see.
I think what happened was the yellow flag would have come out in Sector 2, and it may have been that the 2 Audis were already on it and just got caught. And it's one of the circumstances that you have to be always aware of when there's a yellow flag. It's the sector, it's not just the corner. So if you go through the sector quicker than your previous best time, which would have probably been the case in the case of the 2 Audis, then that time will be deleted. That's an assumption on my part. We might get some further news from race director's office, but I would assume that was the reason why those times were deleted.
Yeah, if you've got a long sector, you can certainly get caught out of all that. So, as you were, ladies and gentlemen, it's Daniel Kalvitz top in the Pro-Am Ferrari, the 333 Rinaldi Racing example, by just over 1/10 of a second from Raffaele Marciello, who really had started to pick up the pace in the 90 ACA ASP Mercedes, and Max van Splunteren in the Silver Cup class, 3rd fastest for Attempto Racing. So it's as you were, but we're going to have 6 minutes and 3 seconds left when we go out again. So a chance for the teams to rejig the tyres, get the drivers to really get their focus back again. But right now, in terms of championship challengers, the overall leader in 8th place overall. And then the chasing crews, Mirko Bortolotti, Christian Engelhardt, not even in the top 20, so they have got to deliver their lap. Marcel Faster, Dries van Tor, as we said, had gone to the top of the time charts, but their previous lap was good for 7th overall, so at least they're right in the mix. But for the number 2 crew of Stevens and Winkelhock, they have tumbled down order out of the top 20.
So looking at the 85 car, the Silver Cup Challenger, and that is Fabian Schiller and Jules Simkowiak. But look,
wow, how's that
it's like
for a traffic jam?
West. Look at them charging.
It's like driving in Rome, isn't it? So fantastic. So all the times done under the red flag, there is clear clarification, have been cancelled. That is why we lost the 2 and 5 Audis from the top of the charts, or more to the point, the 5 and the 2 in that particular order. So out we go, 6 minutes. Well, it's already tumbled to 5.5 minutes. There's still the cars stream out, and half the field, including the championship leading 84 Mercedes, just waiting a few more seconds before they go. They're trying to plan it so they get clear running. They don't want to be in the pack, and I think this is probably a very good tactic. Out goes the 84 now. Maxi Bouk, followed by the sister car number 85, which at the moment has Jules Simkowiak on board, the tall Dutch racer.
Track position, finding a clear lap, with the entire 33 car field all piling out, 5 minutes to go. In effect, by the time you complete your outlap, you will get at best 2 flying laps. If you're at the very front of the field, you might sneak a third one, but look, a little bit of, oh dear me, you bought the wing mirrors, use them.
Well, that was Tom Dillman, who I sung his praise early on, but he was, I think, trying to maximise his track position, but then didn't have his brain.
Maybe he was doing his
in gear.
makeup or something when he was driving down. Maybe he was texting or something. God only knows what they were doing.
Too modern for me, but anyhow, that's a peculiar circumstance. And he's just passed the white line at the pit exit. What is he doing?
Dawdling. And then, the car is actually ahead of him and he drives into it.
Well, that takes the prize this morning. Let's refocus on qualifying. 4 minutes and 20 seconds left. Look at the Audis. They're trying to do it as one. Talk about getting a tow, but I think they're going to trip each other up. I know they're trying to follow an Audi, as we talked about it. They throw a lot of heat out the back. So that's the official tyre warmer. So up to the chicane, there you go, and they'll be starting their qualifying, their first flyer in this second part of Q2, if you will, the serious part after that very brief red flag incident to remove the 55 Ferrari. Now those Audis have bought themselves a bit of space, and the 17 Audi with the yellow nose, that's Robin Freintz, and don't forget they're in the thick of the championship battle, 4th overall. He's showing with Stuart Leonard. Now 4 Audis in a row. Will we have 4 Audis at the top of the timesheets? It's still the 333 Ferrari, Daniel Kalvitz. Let's see how much the track has warmed up since the cars went off the previous time to go into the pits with that very brief red flag period. But
this is where these drivers earn their money, because teams maybe have held back the Q2 drivers to give them the best chance with the best rubber, and all of a sudden with that red flag, there's 5 minutes remaining, now it's down to 3. They've got to go out and deliver. They did great times just before the red flag came out, but those 2 times were disallowed. So now they've got to regroup, refocus with many more cars on track, and the compromise that therefore comes, as we see, the number 2, that's Will Stevens, Marcus Winkelhock behind the wheel. Again, I mean, I think back to Spa 24 when he was driving the Santalock car. What a stunning drive from that particular Audi team to take victory in the Spa 24. Back now in the WRT car with Will Stevens, and proving to be a very formidable lineup.
There's Will Stevens in the middle of the garage, cap on, back to front, his trademark style. Taking a look at the screens, nothing he can do about it. It's all in the hands of Winky. And says 0-1 on the windscreen, but of course really 0-1 at the moment. Should be on the windscreen of the 333 Ferrari, Daniel Kalvitz. So people just starting to pick up the pace now. Well, very serious, because they've only got 2 and a bit minutes remaining. Clear track ahead of the green nose Audi there, the number 2, and Winkelhock is trying to make the most of it. Still waiting for the long first sector to be completed, so we can see if we've got a really quick time on the screen.
So no one's showing purple
nope.
on their first effective flying lap since the red flag was being removed. Winkelhock got personal best. Well, we would expect that. Mirko Bortolotti has jumped up into 10th place. Frederick Vervish has gone, but Robin Freins in the Audi number 17 has gone quickest, waiting to see what Marcus Winkelhock will do. He's gone 2nd quickest.
Winkelhock still listed as 4th, actually, John, behind Kalvitz.
Oh, sorry, yes, 4th, I mean, but 2nd of the Audi, sorry.
2nd of the Audi, yeah.
Bentley goes into 5th.
Yep, Andy Soucek delivering well. Max van Splunteren still in the mix in 6th place overall. These times are going to change fast. But Robin Freins top in the number 17 Audi. Number 43 suddenly gets up into 3rd place. That's Stein Schottor sharing with Johnny Kane. So McLaren's still showing good form. And Tristan Vautier, who's joined the ACCA crew, is in 4th place overall. Into almost the final minute. Daniel Kalvitz trying to see what he can do. Not a bad last lap, just a 15 thousandths away from his very best, but 84, this is the key car.
He's in the pit. Oh, very, very late cut.
He's only 16th.
That is a strange decision, because they should have, unless they've been really badly held up. Oh, and there's another Audi, the 26 in, and that's another red flag. So Simon Gachet or Peter Turting, I don't know. And
that should be Peter Turting in the car, so he's just joined the championship, and now what's that going to do? Red flag, 47
red
minutes.
Flag immediately. Straight away, the red flag came out. That's why I think that we saw the 84 Mercedes diving straight into the pits.
Well, I'm taking a look. It's up on its jacks in the pit lane, as they haven't even got to the 26 Audi to relieve it. Looking under the back of the car at the moment, there is something that clearly was troubling Maxi Boot. We didn't see him have an off-track moment. They're looking at the, just checking the diffuser at the back. Car back down onto the deck. It's about to be wheeled into the garage.
Yeah, what they've done, they've decided to work on the car, and to do so, they have to put it back in the garage, or certainly to rotate the car to get it into the ideal position. So only 2 people permitted to work in the car in the pit lane. So tyres coming off, and there will be a new set of tyres that will go on. So car 26 hit the wall at turn 4. That's the exit of that little sort of stadium area. So maybe he just caught a damp patch, snatched very rapidly and quickly. As we also read that team manager for car 85 and driver Simkoviak to the stewards after Q3. Now what has Jules been up to this time?
I don't know. He came out of the pits behind 84. 84, you know, sister car from HTP Motorsports. They weren't that close. We saw the little contact for, of course, the 84 car side by side with the Lamborghini that went across to Tom Dillman at the wheel.
Strange place that the Audi ended up.
Quite a long way round. It's as though it went over the curb on the left-hand side, and then it's come across.
He's gone, I suspect, coming out of turn 4, caught the curb, and the car has then either shot directly across the track, or maybe spun quickly and then sort of nosed into the tyre bales. Whatever it is, session is finished.
Well, the pressure's on for HTP Motorsports. So let's go down to hear from Frank Pereira, who's been caught in the pit lane by Dakota.
Frank, now you're currently running in P16. What's going on?
It's quite a crazy qualifier, I think. You know, for sure, it's the track was a bit humid in some part, so I think it's quite tough. Everyone is pushing. I think, fortunately, we are in for the Q3, so it's quite tricky, and I think the Lambo is not in the Q3, so I don't know. I think Max gonna try the maximum to be in the top, but it's a very stressing qualifier.
Now you drove in Q1. Tell me what the track conditions are like. It looks a bit wet on sector 2.
Q1 was really wet, especially in sector 1, so I didn't push on my run. I want to save my tires and save the car for the Q2. So now we're gonna watch Max.
Well, good luck. Thanks.
Interesting point there. He said the Lambo isn't in the mix. It was, but the red flag cancelled that lap. It went into 10th place. We saw the 63 Lamborghini getting to 10th place, lost that time. So 16th place, enough to get into Q3 by the skin of their teeth.
Yes, but I mean, the car that is outside of the top 17 is the 63 Lamborghini in 18th place. So Bortolotti will not take part because it's only the top 17 cars that take part. So there we see it, the Lamborghini in the middle of the pack, 18th, not in the top 17. Starts right in the middle of a field, and that will be a nightmare to make progress in the 1 hour that we have for the qualifying race later this afternoon.
Of course, what we're assuming is that in Q3, the 84 Mercedes will come good and work its way to top. If it doesn't, then that sort of might wipe the smile off Frank's face there. But when you have an interrupted session, when you have a session that starts damp and is gradually drying, we were building towards a climax. A climax, effectively, John, that never came. And right at the bottom is Vincent Abril and Stephen Kane in their number 7 Bentley. So
what we have to wait and see actually is will the 63 Lamborghini make it through, because they were actually 13th quickest in Q1, 18th in Q2. So these are
let's just take
points. Yeah.
It couldn't get much closer to the top of the championship. You have 8 points. Just remember this, John. 8 points victory in the qualifying race. Everyone will be desperate to grab those, and then 25 for victory in the feature race. Of course, that's the one you want to win, but every single point those top 5 crews can gain, and the 17 crew, they're 3rd overall in the championship, and they are fastest going into Q3, but every single point out of the 33 up to grabs is going to be essential for those top 5 crews that are really realistically in the chance for the title.
Yes, I don't think the title will be decided by the qualifying race, but grid position as a consequence of the results will decide the outcome on Sunday.
But it's not just, if you're 1 place ahead of a championship rival, you probably gain 1 point, possibly 2 points more than in the qualifying race, with top 4 crews covered by just 4 points. Those are vital. Of course, it's what happens in the final, but it's not just the extra point, it's 1 place further up the grid.
It's principally, I mean, for me, it's going to be about what you do in the qualifying race. Anybody who gets onto the front 2 rows of the grid is going to have an opportunity in the feature race on Sunday to gain the big points. There we see track temperature. It's up a little bit again to 20.2 Celsius, ambient 13.4. When I got up this morning and went out to the car, it was 6 Celsius.
Yeah, certainly
it's risen. I mean, in the space of what, 2 and a bit hours. It's 3 hours nearly now, of course, when I left very early to get to the circuit to do all my prep. It was just 6 Celsius, yes, it was nippy.
I can't work out why you come to the circuit before they've even unlocked the gates. But for McLaren, they showed a bit of pace, but it was an interesting first session. The track still was greasy, or humid as it was called. But we really need to find out what's happened down for the Lamborghini crew, because 63 really lost out Mirko Bortolotti, but Dakota.
Mirko, now you're normally a very strong contender. What's going on today?
Well, I think we would have been in a condition to be in Q3, but unfortunately, two unlucky situations with the red flag. Twice in my best lap, just took us out. I was on a really good lap now with a good first sector, which would have been good enough for top 5. And then the red flag came out, so there's nothing we can do. The session didn't resume, so that's it.
What a pity. Sorry. Thanks.
Almost more than what a pity for Mirko Bortolotti. He kept it together well there. I'm impressed because a lot of drivers, you know, with that level of disappointment, to be so close to getting into Q3 and to have it taken out of your hands would be gutted. But
make no
he is
mistake,
gutted.
He is truly. But
presented a good face.
He is professional about the way he gave the interview, and that's what a professionally both engaged and paid driver is required to do. Not spit the dummy and behave like a child.
Well, Andy Soucek and Maxime Soulet, in fact, the other way around. Maxime went first and then Andy Soucek. They've managed to qualify, well, 7th so far, but of course they go into Q3 and they could qualify anywhere in the top 17. 17 crews out of the 33 that started today have gone through to Q3, but the 54 Lexus is not among them, but that is no surprise. But they really showed well in Q1, so it's nice to have them here at the party, but the level at the top is so super tight. So into Q3 we go, and leading out is Daniel Kalvitz in the 333 Rinaldi Racing Ferrari. He showed really good form. Pro-Am Championship leaders, second fastest as we go into Q3, but that matters for nothing now. It counts for nothing whatsoever. But McLaren in the mix at Nurburgring, they wouldn't have even got into Q3, the majority of them.
I mean, what a difference a 3-week break makes. What a difference a track with a much lower ambient and track temperature has also made. But I also suspect that McLaren have had to knuckle down and really get to understand why has their car underperformed, in particular on the 2017 Pirelli, where all around have made the tyre work for them. So this is something that they need to give us a little bit of insight. Baz Landers is normally the person that would be most helpful in understanding what's going on. Let's seek him out.
Little message on screen as the drivers went to go out for their sighting lap. No action against car number 82. That was Tom Dillman moving across into the side of Maxi Buch's Mercedes as they left the pits. Anyhow, let's move on from that. So Daniel Kalvitz again riding around the circuit. Every time we have an onboard lap, A, it's exciting to watch, but B, we see fewer and fewer of the humid patches, as Franck Pereira calls them, the damp areas of the circuit, and certainly the sun is rising now over the top of some of the grandstands. Still a lot of shade on our side. We're looking across from the buildings on the left back into the pit lane, but it matters not. That's on the straight. It's when it gets you in the corners.
This is camera freeze. He hasn't had an accident, just the picture break up from the onboard looking back into the face of the Ferrari driver as he goes through the chicane, coming up to complete his outlap there. The car now comes into the final, this long turn that leads on to start finish straight. Important to get a good entrance exit, because the second fastest part of the circuit. And then the braking, it's a long run down into turn 1 that falls away, the track drops away as you get close to the braking zone. Slightly tricky braking zone because the corner is quite cambered on the apex. So an area where people will attempt to outbrake, take the long way round, or try and slip up the inside.
But what Daniel Kalvitz appears to have is clear track ahead of him. Of course, it's a very quick fire session, only 10 minutes in all. You have to lay down your marker, but you do stand a risk if you're the first car to go out to catch those who are still on their outlap when you're on your flyer. But it's looking good. There is something right in the distance ahead of him, but I think he's going to be okay. In the background of shot, I think I saw the 84 Maxi Buch Mercedes flashing around the circuit. That's the bronze one, but right now Daniel Kalvitz has a really good opportunity to lay down the best he can without interruption.
Ran very wide on the exit of turn 6, just managed to keep the car from getting into the gravel. Brakes very late, very deep, almost overruns down into the turn 8 at the bottom of the hill, maybe pushing a little bit too hard, certainly on the exit of turn 6, and then the braking down into turn 8, up through this very quick left, then right through turns 9 and 10, and another relatively short straight. Fastest overall in sector 1, but not surprising because first car out on track, first car to start a flying lap. Interesting to see now, can he get through this next turn 12 that leads down the hill. Then traffic ahead of him, which may come into play either just at the entrance to the chicane or maybe the entrance into the final turn.
I think he should be okay. So it's a really positive lap. Perhaps he cost himself with running wide at turn 6. He's very wide again at the end of the lap. But this is looking very good indeed in terms of not being interrupted. 2 purple times on the screen, fastest of anyone. He's the first one to deliver. And Ben Barnicoat and Rob Bell going very well. Rob Bell in particular look as though they'll topple him. But there is our first mark in Q3. 1 minute 54.063. So Rinaldi Racing, they look very pleased in that. So Pro-Am car, top of the charts. Of course, he's the only driver to finish his lap. Now it looks like Bentley is going to stick a lap on the screens. Andy Soucek, oh, he's 1 minute 57. That's way off the pace. 1 minute 54.0. Fantastic lap from Daniel Karvitz. And we just had Ben Barnicoat in the McLaren going to second place, but he's also in the 1 minute 57. So there's a 3-second gap between first and second and third they're covered by the blink of an eye. But really it's the Audis we're looking for at the moment. Will Stevens definitely in the championship mix, 5th place overall, 6 points off the top of the table, and he is going well, but behind him, look out for Dries van Thor. Dries is on a charge. Sit in your seat, John. Oh, he's fastest in the second, sir.
Fastest second sector.
So Bell goes top, just pips Karvitz by 5 1/1000ths of a second. So McLaren top of the charts, but on the form of the charging Audis coming through the pack, that could change. Tristan Vautier into 3rd, Will Stevens into 4th. So 3 cars in 1 minute 54s, and now into the 53s. 1 minute 53.5. Dries van Thor on top. Provisional pole, early days yet, by 0.4 of a second, because suddenly a Lamborghini, Andrea Caldarelli into 2nd place. Rob Bell still sitting there in 3rd, but 2 cars in the 1 minute 53. So number 5 on a massive charge. Dries van Thor seeing if he can improve on his 2nd flyer.
Just under 5 minutes, coming up to 4.5 minutes of the session remaining. So this lap complete, another lap, and possibly a 3rd flying back, but by which time you've had the best of your tyres. So Dries van Thor dominating right now by 4/10ths of a second from the 19 Lamborghini. Rob Bell in 3rd place, a further, less than a 10th of a second behind. And then there's the first of the Pro-Am cars, Daniel Karvitz, 1:54.063, outstanding performance in that Pro-Am Ferrari.
59 McLaren, Rob Bell, fastest of all in the first sector. His first flyer good for 3rd overall, for half a second down. Dries van Thor, 1 at 53.5, going faster and faster than number 5 Audi. Can the McLaren fight back? Rob Bell pressing on very hard through sector 2. But and as soon as he does that, his best time in sector 1 has just been toppled by Dries van Thor in the number 5 Audi. But let's see what Rob can do around the remainder of this lap. Will he put a McLaren onto the front row? He's 3rd at the moment behind the number 5 Audi and the number 19 Lamborghini, still looking very good mid-lap.
And that's a personal best in sector 2. He did have fastest overall in sector 1. That's now been taken away from him by Dries van Thor and the number 5 Audi, but this is a strong lap from the McLaren driver. Rob Bell currently in 3rd place. Can he improve? He does. He goes up to 2nd.
Just want to point out the 84 Maxi Book Mercedes down in 11th at the moment, and Dries van Thor going faster and faster. Best in the first sector, his best in the second sector. He's on pole by 0.039 of a second, almost nothing, but those little nothings count, ahead of Rob Bell.
And he improves yet again, 1:53.449.
So 0.122 of a second. Marcel Fassler watching on with great admiration from the pit lane. This is looking good. The clock down into the final 3 minutes. Who else is showing well? Somebody, Dominic Baumann, up into 4th place. But for HTP Motorsport, they won their 84 car there. That's the one that's the championship challenger. That in the hands of Maxi Book is down in 13th out of the 17 runners.
There's hardly a car on the circuit. Everybody back in the pit lane with 2.5 minutes
but
to go.
This is more like it, because we've got 1.2 seconds covering 1st to 17th. This is how close we expect it to be in the Blancpain GT Series, and I think they're going to be closer still. Handful of cars in the pits, most though just losing track position. Looking for late changes. Is Dries van Thor going to stretch it out? And now up into 8th place. Maxi Book has moved up to 8th place in the 84 Mercedes. Don't forget, leading the championship, but only by 3 points. And if he's got championship rivals starting first and him in 8th, that points advantage could disappear in the qualifying race.
It looks to me that everybody who went out in this final round of qualifying did a 1-lap wonder, and that was it, because they recognised that the tyre was, oh boy, a bit messy there from the Lamborghini, not being aware of the 84 Mercedes coming around. So is the 84 Mercedes still on a flying lap?
They are.
Not? They're in 8th place at the minute.
The times are still improving around the lap, but they're early in this final flyer. A lot of them really quite close together on the circuit. Remember this, the target time, 1 minute 53.449 seconds. Rob Bell just over 1/10 of a second down in the 59 McLaren. The 84 Mercedes has just set, well, at what was its best lap, but it needs to find over half a second, 2/3 of a second if it's going to challenge
and
the pole.
He's still on a flying lap with just over a minute and 20 seconds to go. So Maximilian Buch needs to get this 84 Mercedes up onto at least the front 3 rows of the grid. Currently, he's at the 4th row. He's in 8th place. He needs that extra row. He needs an extra 2 rows.
Well, he's not
put himself into a position to at least give himself a better chance of a position this later this afternoon, but most importantly for the race on Sunday.
It is so close at the top of the championship. Here we are at the final round of the Sprint Cup. 7 teams, 7 duos could take the title. 5 of them really close together at the top. So no wonder Maxi Buch is clouting the curbs. Just saw him bouncing off the curves, but keeping the car vaguely on the straight and narrow as he presses on. He needs to get higher than 8th position overall, but now it seems as though the life is going out of these tyres. They really have been used to perfection by the majority of the drivers, but none better than Dries van Tor. Dries has shot his best shot, and he's reported back to the pits. Is there an improvement?
Stays in 8th place.
No, he lost 1 and a bit seconds. He's got one more chance, but he really was maybe a bit too wide over the curbs.
So whether Max Buch, I mean, it looks to me like he's backed out of it. I think he recognises that he's had the best of the tyre. Certainly runs wide coming out of turn 1. They look back at one of the 2 McLarens, and looking back at one of the second of the 2 McLarens. Pretty much everybody, there's the checkered flag is out. There's the 19 car. 3rd place for Andrea Calderaldi. So he will be delighted and surprised, because we would have thought it would be the 63 car. But as Mirko Bortolotti explained, he got caught out on 2 occasions with a red flag, and there's nothing he can do about it.
Nothing you can do about it at all. The fate, someone else slipping up. It was very easy to make a mistake early this morning. Damp patches and dry patches, and clearly the damp caught some of the runners out. But seems that Dries van Tor has nailed a pole position. Are there going to be late improvements? The checkered flag has been greeted, taken by almost everyone. Tristan Vautier has come through. Frank Stippler, 11th and 12th, will be their best showings, but with no improvements looking to be coming this way. It seems that Dries van Tor and Marcel Fassler will start the qualifying race this afternoon at 2 o'clock from pole position. They were the main men at the Hungaroring 3 weekends ago, and with 2 victories there, they came here with their tails up and have really delivered. They were the strong pairings in practice yesterday. Track conditions different today and changing by the moment. A cold, clear night, mist hanging in the valleys this morning, but the extra few minutes that they had during those red flag stoppages interrupted the flow, but allowed the track to dry that little bit more. Still the 84 car coming around trying to improve its position from 8th, but with no green on the screen and no improvements on their lap times, it really is incidental. They will take the checkered flag. They will stay. They got to within 1/10 of a second of their best, so Franck Pereira realised that was a better lap than we did. It was very close to his best time last time around, but they will start from 8th. So a little more serious, the faces down in HTP, less serious but equally focused down at Belgian Audi Club Team WRT, because they've done it again. So Dries van Tor and Marcel Fassler pole position for the qualifying race, and that means a lot.
It means more than a lot. It means, is this a continuation of Budapest, the kind of domination that we enjoyed, because it was a stellar performance from both Marcel Fassler and Dries van Tor. So you can see the joy down with the number 5 Audi team, the Belgian Audi Club Team WRT. So great start to the day.
And I think
no reason to think that they can't consolidate, but at least they know they're going to be certainly in the top 6 where there are points. But more importantly, and I keep emphasising, with the final round of the Sprint Championship here this weekend, it will be more about grid position. That's the key that everybody's looking for Sunday's race.
Well, a very, very happy Dries van Tor. In fact, the next best placed championship challengers are their teammates, Robin Freintz in 17th, and then the best of the Mercedes runners, the championship leaders, Maxi Buch and Franck Pereira, will start 8th, 7th and 8th. So just remember there are 5 interloping cars. But let's take our hats off this morning to McLaren for getting right back into the mix. Rob Bell ending up 0.122 of a second down as the 84 Mercedes cruises its way back. They had that final attempt when everyone else had given up with just a few seconds to go. Didn't quite get it, but it's advantage to the number 5 Audi crew, to Belgian Audi Club Team WRT. There they are, atop of the timesheets, just 1/10 of a second and a bit more ahead of Rob Bell and Andrew Watson in the 59 McLaren. And then a Lamborghini, but not the right one in terms of the championship battle. At least Perez Companc and Andrea Caldarelli going third fastest, but of course the 63 Lamborghini crew didn't make the cut for Q3. They missed it by 1 position, having had their 2 best laps scuppered by red flags, and that has really dented their championship challenge. But let's see what the weather does for later today. Beautiful blue skies here this morning at the Nurburgring. John Watson and me, Bruce Jones, thoroughly enjoyed watching qualifying. But let's hear from the happiest people in the pit lane, because Dakota has caught up with a pole qualifier, Dries Van Tor and Frank Pereira.
Dries, P1, congratulations. Is this becoming a thing now?
No, I mean, we're just trying our best every race weekend, and I must say, like I said in Budapest, we did some good summer work, to say, and yeah, the car was just amazing again. WT boys really did a good job in the summer, and we just did a good test, and we found some good stuff. So I mean, the car is amazing to drive, and of course we try just every time our best, and really happy that we can put it on pole. It's already 1 point closer now, so we're only 3 points. So yeah, just this weekend we're gonna come here, we go all in. We want to win the championship, so we try everything we can, and now to start from pole is already a really good start, but of course there are still 2 big races, and we will try our best there as well.
Good stuff. I'm looking forward to the qualifying race. Thanks.
Yeah, that means a lot. And actually, I said, John, any extra point you can gain is valuable. I completely forgot about the extra point for pole position.
Oh, indeed.
So it's a double bubble. It's a great delight for them. But the fact they're closest to their championship challengers are 7th and 8th on the grid, that is a massive, massive result. And equally, for those who aren't championship challengers, we have a whole group of them looking to at least lay down a marker, maybe get 1 victory. But it was a stop-start session, which made it really difficult for all of the drivers. The track was damp at the start of the session, and they had to keep it on the black stuff. Let's go back and look at the highlights of 3 qualifying sessions, and it was tricky conditions indeed when the drivers went out. It might have been blue skies and sunny conditions, but the track was wet. As you go around, you can see damp patches mixing and greeting the Lexus crew. Welcome to the Blancpain GT Series for them for the first time. And the 59 McLaren in session 1 with Andrew Watson ended up fastest of all, and really, apart from a bit of traffic in the second session, a fantastic run for them. Daniel Kalvitz, superstar, Rinaldi Racing, really got into the mix and put them up at the sharp ends of the charts. But it was a case of trying to minimise the errors around the circuit. Unfortunately, Lorenzo Kaze, just a little slip up off the track. That brought out the red flags, and that was one of the incidents that would cost the 63 Lamborghini crew. There is a 63 car with Mirko Bortolotti coming out of the pits to try and set a lap, and then inexplicably its sister car with Tom Dillman just was slow, didn't see the 84 Mercedes, clattered it on the exit of the pit lane. Second red flag because the Santalot Audi off the circuit. This interrupted the flow for the drivers, it interrupted the concentration, and they had to really, really keep their focus again in the hand to Daniel Kalvitz, the Rinaldi Racing Ferrari from the Pro-Am class. There you can see the sticker on the rear of the car. Took to the edge of the circuit and beyond in his quest to go top. But it was the number 5 car with Dries Van Tor building on the good work of Marcel Fassler that ended up taking the extra point for pole position.